Humanity was the only race brave enough, or foolish enough, to defy the Tsenkethi Empire's iron grip on the galaxy. The Earth battlecruiser ISS Defiance patrolled the fringes of Tsenkethi territory, probing for any signs of weakness. Without warning, the ship's sensors flared with a distress call. A Tsenkethi civilian transport, besieged by heavily armed rebel ships. Captain Peter Foster knew engaging the rebels directly violated Earth's orders, yet the potential intelligence gains proved irresistible. Foster hurled the Defiance into the fray like a lightning bolt, cutting through the rebel formation with surgical precision. His boarding party stormed the smoldering transport, finding Tsenkethi bodies scattered amidst the ruin. Amidst the carnage lay Rigel, an important Tsenkethi diplomat, clinging to life. Foster brought him to the Defiance's medical bay, ignoring Commander Eliza Kincaid's warnings about the risks. As surgeons worked frantically to stabilize Rigel, the diplomat revealed a shocking truth. He had been traveling to secret peace talks between the Empire and rebel worlds, until Imperial hardliners sabotaged his mission. In saving Rigel, the Defiance had stumbled into a precarious game of galactic brinksmanship. Tsenkethi retribution was all but inevitable. Earth erupted into turmoil as news spread of Foster's unsanctioned rescue. Some praised him for striking a blow against Tsenkethi oppression. Others condemned him for pushing humanity to the precipice of war. Disaster loomed when the Tsenkethi regent transmitted a chilling ultimatum. Surrender Rigel and the Defiance crew immediately, or face the Empire's wrath. Boxed into a corner, Foster saw a third path. He proposed an alliance with Rigel, leveraging the attack to sow chaos in the Empire. If they could expose the hardliners' duplicity at the rebel summit, it might fracture Tsenkethi unity, giving Earth an opening to negotiate from strength. It was an audacious gamble, but the alternative was capitulation or destruction. As the Defiance raced toward the summit with the Imperial fleet in pursuit, one thing was clear. The future of humanity hinged on the actions of one ship and her valiant crew. The ISS Defiance hurtled through the void, engines straining as Captain Foster pushed the ship to its limits. In the medical bay, Rigel floated in a Bacta tank, his wounds slowly knitting together. Foster stood before the observation window, watching the Tsenkethi's vital signs flicker on the monitors. "Captain, we've got incoming." The voice of Lieutenant Jax Hawkins crackled over the comm. "Multiple Tsenkethi warships closing fast." Foster sprinted to the bridge, adrenaline surging through his veins. The view screen showed a cluster of angular, predatory shapes against the starfield, the Imperial fleet, led by the Tsenkethi dreadnought Ascendant. "They're hailing us, sir," said Ensign Reva Patel, her fingers dancing over the comms panel. The screen flickered, and the gaunt, tattooed visage of Admiral Janthakur appeared. "Captain Foster," he hissed, his voice dripping with contempt, "surrender the traitor Rigel and prepare to be boarded. Resist and face annihilation." Foster met the Admiral's glare with steely commitment. "Rigel is under my protection. If you want him, you'll have to come and take him." Janthakur bared his fangs in a wordless snarl as the screen went dark. Moments later, the Ascendant opened fire, lances of searing plasma slashing across the Defiance's shields. "Evasive maneuvers," Foster barked, gripping the arms of his command chair as the deck shuddered beneath him. "Get us out of here now!" The Defiance wheeled and dove, weaving through a hail of enemy fire as it fled toward the rebel stronghold. Foster gritted his teeth, his mind racing as he plotted their escape. They were outgunned and outnumbered, but he refused to let that stop him. Too much was at stake. As the Defiance plunged into the uncharted depths of a nearby nebula, Foster could only hope that Rigel's gambit would pay off. If they could just reach the summit and expose the Tsenkethi hardliners' treachery, maybe, just maybe, they could turn the tide of this war. But first, they had to survive. The hours crawled by as the Defiance navigated the treacherous, swirling clouds of the nebula. Foster paced the bridge restlessly, his eyes flicking between the view screen and the tactical display. Every moment, he expected to see the Ascendant's looming hull materialize from the murk, guns blazing. Suddenly, a new signal appeared on the sensors. "Captain, we're receiving a distress call," Hawkins reported, his brow furrowed. It's from a human colony, not far from here. They're under attack by Tsenkethi forces. Foster hesitated, torn between his duty to the mission and his oath to protect humanity. He glanced at Commander Kincaid, who shook her head almost imperceptibly. They both knew what was at stake. But before Foster could give the order to press on, Rigel's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, we must go to their aid," the Tsenkethi said, his voice strained but firm. "Demonstrating your commitment to your people will send a powerful message to the rebel leaders." Foster paused, considering Rigel's words. Then, with a curt nod, he made his decision. "Helm, set course for the colony, best speed, ready weapons and shields." As the Defiance banked toward the besieged settlement, Foster could only hope they would reach it in time, and that somehow this act of mercy wouldn't doom them all. The Defiance erupted from the nebula's swirling gases, shields flaring as it absorbed a barrage of Tsenkethi fire. On the bridge, Foster's fist clenched as he gripped the command chair. "Status report!" he barked. Lieutenant Hawkins' fingers danced across his console. "Shields at 63% and falling. We're outnumbered 6-1, sir." Foster's mind raced. They were cornered, outgunned, and running out of options. He glanced at Rigel, who stood stoically by tactical, and then to Zara Novak, the rebel leader they'd picked up at the besieged human colony. Zara's eyes met his, a spark of desperate inspiration igniting between them. "Captain," she said, her voice low and urgent, "I have a plan. It's risky, but it might be our only shot." Foster nodded, all too aware of the closing noose of Tsenkethi warships. "I'm all ears." As Zara outlined her audacious gambit, Foster felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. It was beyond dangerous. It was practically suicide. But as another volley rocked the ship, he knew they were out of alternatives. "All right," he said, standing to address his crew. "Here's what we're going to do." Minutes later, Foster stood alone in the Defiance's airlock, his breath fogging the inside of his helmet. He keyed his communicator one last time. "Remember, you'll only have a small window. Make it count." Commander Kincaid's voice crackled back, tight with tension. "Understood, sir. Good luck." The airlock cycled open, and Foster pushed off into the void. As he drifted toward the looming bulk of the Ascendant, he transmitted on an open channel. "This is Captain Peter Foster of the ISS Defiance. I surrender myself to Tsenkethi authority." A tractor beam latched onto him, pulling him into the maw of the enemy flagship. Foster's heart hammered in his chest, but his face was a mask of calm grit as Tsenkethi Marines surrounded him, weapons trained on his head. Admiral Janthakur's sneer was visible even through his protective mask as Foster was marched onto the bridge. "So the foolish human finally shows wisdom, but your surrender comes too late to save you or your crew." Foster met the Admiral's gaze evenly. "Perhaps, but before you condemn us all, there's something you need to see." He reached slowly into his suit, ignoring the Marine's tensing trigger fingers, and produced a data crystal. "Evidence of treachery within your own ranks, Admiral. The hardliners have been lying to you, and to all Tsenkethi." Janthakur's eyes narrowed, but he gestured for an aide to take the crystal. As the damning information spread across the bridge displays, Foster watched the Admiral's expression shift from disbelief to shock to barely suppressed fury. This cannot be," Janthakur hissed. But even as doubt began to creep into the Tsenkethi ranks, alarms blared throughout the ship. On the tactical display, a swarm of new contacts appeared. Rebel ships pouring out of hyperspace on all sides. And at their head, a sight that made Foster's heart soar, the distinctive profile of Earth warships, led by none other than the ISS Intrepid, Commander Kincaid's vessel. As chaos erupted on the Ascendant's bridge, Foster lunged for the nearest control panel. The element of surprise was fleeting, but it might be enough. He had to give Rigel and Zara their chance, had to buy time for this fragile alliance to turn the tide. Janthakur roared orders, his carefully cultivated control crumbling in the face of betrayal and a battle spinning rapidly out of his grasp. And in that moment of uncertainty, the fate of 3 civilizations hung in the balance. The Ascendant's bridge erupted into chaos as Foster's gambit paid off. Alarms blared and crew members scrambled to battle stations, their disciplined ranks fracturing under the weight of betrayal and surprise. Admiral Jean Thakur's face contorted with rage as he bellowed orders, struggling to regain control of his ship and his fleet. Foster seized the moment of confusion, diving for cover as Tsenkethi Marines opened fire. He rolled behind a console, narrowly avoiding a barrage of plasma bolts that scorched the deck plating where he'd stood moments before. With practiced efficiency, he tapped commands into his wrist computer, transmitting tactical data to the incoming Allied fleet. Through the view screen, Foster watched as Earth and Rebel ships tore into the Tsenkethi formation. The ISS Intrepid led the charge, its weapons blazing as it cut a path through the enemy line. Commander Kincaid's voice crackled over the comms. "Cavalry's here, Captain. Hang tight." On the Defiance, Rigel and Zara coordinated their forces, exploiting the weaknesses in the Imperial fleet's suddenly fractured command structure. Rebel ships struck with precision, targeting key systems and communication relays, while Earth vessels provided covering fire and drew away the brunt of the Tsenkethi counterattack. As the battle raged around them, Foster fought his way across the Ascendant's bridge. He grappled with a Tsenkethi officer, using the alien's own momentum to hurl him into a bank of sensors. Alarms shrieked as vital systems went offline, further crippling the flagship's ability to coordinate its fleet. Admiral Jean Thakur snarled, unsheathing a ceremonial blade as he advanced on Foster. "You've doomed us all, human!" Foster ducked under the Admiral's wild swing, feeling the blade whistle past his ear. He countered with a swift jab to Jean Thakur's midsection, driving the air from the Tsenkethi's lungs. "No," Foster grunted. "I've given us all a chance at peace." Their struggle was cut short as a massive explosion rocked the Ascendant. A rebel cruiser had broken through, its guns pounding the flagship's shield generators. Foster stumbled, using the moment to snatch Jean Thakur's blade and hold it to the Admiral's throat. "Stand down," Foster commanded, his voice carrying across the bridge. "It's over." One by one, the Tsenkethi crew lowered their weapons. Outside, the tide of battle had decisively turned. The once feared Imperial armada was in disarray, divided by doubt and hammered by the unexpected onslaught of Earth and Rebel forces. As Foster secured the Ascendant's surrender, a priority transmission came through from Rigel. The Tsenkethi's face was grim as he delivered the news. "Captain, we've achieved victory here, but our struggle is far from finished. Grand Admiral Toshiro has declared himself the true heir to the Empire. He's gathering forces to crush our alliance and restore Tsenkethi dominance." Foster's eyes hardened as he processed the implications. They had won the day, but a greater threat loomed on the horizon. He turned to Jean Thakur, still held at blade point. "Admiral, you've seen the truth of your leader's deception. Will you stand with us against Toshiro, or cling to the lie of Imperial supremacy?" Jean Thakur's eyes darted between Foster and the view screen, where the remnants of his once mighty fleet drifted helplessly. After a long moment, he slumped in defeat. "What would you have me do?" Foster lowered the blade, offering his hand to the fallen admiral. "Help us broker a real peace. Together we can end this war before Toshiro plunges us all into darkness." As Jean Thakur clasped Foster's hand, the seeds of an uneasy alliance were sown. But even as the victorious fleet regrouped, Grand Admiral Toshiro's forces gathered in the shadows, preparing to unleash a storm that would shake the galaxy to its very foundations. Foster's communicator crackled to life, Commander Kincaid's voice cutting through the post-battle silence. "Captain, we've intercepted encrypted transmissions. You need to see this." Minutes later, Foster stood on the Intrepid's bridge, his face grim as he absorbed the implications of the data scrolling across the screen. A secret Imperial cabal, plotting to reignite the war with humanity. All their hard-won progress teetered on the edge of oblivion. "We need to act fast," Foster said, turning to Rigel and Zara. "I have a plan, but it's risky." Rigel's scales shifted, a Tsenkethi expression of concern. "What do you propose, Captain?" Foster's eyes hardened. "I'm going undercover, into the heart of the cabal itself." Hours later, Foster stood before a mirror, barely recognizing himself in the ornate uniform of a Tsenkethi admiral. The transformation was complete, down to the last detail. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. The derelict space station loomed before him, a skeletal remnant of a bygone era. Foster's stolen shuttle docked with practiced ease, his borrowed credentials granting him access to the Cabal's inner sanctum. Inside, shadows cloaked conspiracy. Foster moved with affected confidence, nodding to passing officers as if he belonged. His heart raced as he accessed a secure terminal, fingers flying over alien keys. What he found chilled him to the bone: plans for a bioweapon, tailored to human physiology, projected casualty figures in the billions. Foster's face hardened as he copied the data, every second an eternity. A voice like gravel startled him. "Admiring our handiwork, Admiral?" Foster turned, coming face to face with Overseer Crichton, the Cabal's leader. The Tsenkethi's eyes narrowed, suspicion dawning. "Intruder!" Crichton roared, slapping an alarm panel. Klaxons blared as Foster bolted, all pretense abandoned. He dodged plasma bolts, desperation lending him speed. The station rocked with explosions, Crichton triggering the self-destruct sequence. Foster flung himself into an escape pod, pain lancing through his side as a stray shot found its mark. He punched the launch controls, watching through blurred vision as the station disintegrated behind him. With failing strength, Foster activated his communicator. "Rigel, Zara, evidence transmitted. Cabal, bioweapon. Stop them." Darkness claimed him as the pod drifted into the void. Aboard the Defiance, Rigel's claws tightened on the command chair. "All ships, battle stations. We move to contain this threat." Across the sector, rival fleets assembled. Admiral Vakrick's forces, flying the Cabal's banner, seized control of key systems. The Allies found themselves outgunned, their backs against the wall. Zara's voice cut through the chaos. "We need more ships. I'll rally the neutral worlds. It's our only chance." As Zara's diplomatic mission began, Rigel led the defense against Vakrick's relentless assault. The Defiance shuddered under enemy fire, shields failing. "Multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace," a sensor officer shouted. Rigel braced for the worst, but hope bloomed as familiar ships filled the view screen. At their head, the unmistakable profile of Foster's old command. The battle raged, space itself seeming to burn as fleets clashed. Vakrick's forces crumbled under the combined onslaught, but victory came at a terrible price. "Bioweapon detected," Rigel roared. "All ships protect the civilian convoy." The Defiance threw itself into the path of the deadly payload. As radiation alarms screamed, Rigel knew what had to be done. Foster awoke in the Intrepid's medbay, his body racked with pain. He struggled to focus on the solemn faces surrounding him. "The Cabal?" he rasped. "Defeated," Zara replied, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "But Rigel." Foster's heart sank as she recounted Rigel's sacrifice. He closed his eyes, grief and duty warring within him. When he opened them again, dedication blazed. "We honor Rigel's memory by finishing what we started. This isn't over, not by a long shot."
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.